It's time. Welcome back to week 37, start of week 38 of my Mounjaro journey. Is it time for a change? Is it time to step up a dose? I reached this point 22 weeks ago when I was thinking about going from the 5 milligrams up to the 7.5 milligrams, and I flip-flopped back and forth about whether I was going to do this or not for the longest time. And I've now found myself in exactly the same position when considering if I want to go up to the 10 milligrams. As you can see from the intro, I did go ahead and order a 10 milligram pen. Now, I already have a spare 7.5 milligram pen in the fridge at the moment. So the 10 is just to kind of have it there. What I'm going to do is, so I've just finished a pen, 5th dose, and as you'll know, there's always a little bit extra than the 0.6 millilitres that you normally find in a shot. So I think it's about 7, it's just over the 0.7 millilitre mark that you take. So I took the full dose of whatever was remaining in the 5th shot. So I'm going to guess I'm somewhere maybe around 8 milligrams or 8.5 milligrams, not quite 10. But yeah, I wanted to do that just because, as you know, I've been plagued with hunger and some cravings, slight return of food noise, and I just really wanted to have that 10 milligram spare, but also take the extra bit of the dose that was left to see if it's going to make a difference to this week. I've been on 7.5 milligrams for 21 weeks, so that's quite a considerable amount of time. And I just had been getting to the point where the food noise hasn't come roaring back, but it's present. I'm aware there are little voices going on, like thinking about different foods, and not always bad ones. Like the other day I was thinking, I saw an advertisement for a Subway, for a Subway sandwich, and I was like, oh, that looks really good. And normally I wouldn't be interested in that kind of a thing, just because it's a lot of bread and a lot of gluten, and I tend to avoid that. But boy, did that sandwich look really, really good. So I know that these things are changing. So if you're new to my channel, my weekly weigh-ins, I do a little bit of a catch up on my week, which goes over mood, hunger, cravings, side effects, sleep, exercise, non-scale victories, what am I missing here, calories, and any exercise that I've done. I think I might have said exercise twice, but... So yeah, mood this week. Well, I'm back on track. I'm back sort of like in the acceptance stage of where things are in my life. So that's good to be through that, being able to be a little bit more optimistic. And this week I did start having more positive thoughts about the future. So it wasn't all doom and gloom and, you know, what am I going to do? I was back to kind of looking at things in perspective and looking for the silver lining, shall we say. So that's where I am mood-wise this week. And I'm really glad because obviously, as you know, stress is a horrible thing. We all go through it. We all have different things that we have to deal with in our life that do sort of ramp up the stress. And as a consequence of that, I do think that ramped up my hunger, my cravings, and my food noise, I would say. So hunger this week, I would say, has been... it has been present for sure. So I can't say, oh no, I didn't have any hunger, I didn't have any cravings. Yeah, we're not there. But the hunger is reduced. The hunger is more manageable. It's present, but not sort of knocking on the door, if that makes sense. So I get hungry at appropriate times and I try and eat a decent amount of food to deal with that. But that's kind of fed into my, is this just stress or is it the 7.5 kind of like wearing off a little bit? Is it time to go back up? So all of those things I have been taking into consideration. The 10 milligram pen is more expensive no matter where you order it from. So that's the added consideration, isn't it, as well for everybody? It's like, you know, is it time? Can I do it financially? And so yeah, I have made my peace with, I have that 10 milligram pen now, And I want to see how I do on that slightly increased dose this week to see, do I need to step it up immediately next week? So week 38. Yeah. Yeah. No. So do I need to step it up so that starting Thursday of next week, I take the 10 milligrams? I've still got a bit of a play around time to think about that between sort of now, today, Saturday, and Thursday of next week. So I'll see how this slightly increased sort of 8.5 milligram dose does for me, just to see, does it make a difference to my hunger, my cravings, etc. Hopefully it will. Because yeah, I mean, if you've been on this and you've had food noise and hunger and cravings out of control, you know you don't want to go back there. So it's a little bit of a kind of worry when you are feeling so much hunger in comparison to what you've been feeling before. And I'm not saying no hunger is a good thing, because we all know when you first start, you're just like delighted that you've got no hunger. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's good to have a reduction in that hunger and cravings. I can't say I've had overwhelming cravings, but what I will say is I've noticed a few things have just like sneaked in. So like I always have a packet of crisps or potato chips in the cupboard. And the other day I had some lunch. It was a quick grab lunch, and I quick grabbed a packet of potato chips as well. So didn't need them, hadn't been craving them, but it was just they were there and I had them. So haven't done that much in the last 8 months. So yeah, full disclosure, I'm always going to be honest on this channel, and I would encourage you to be honest with yourselves. And I mean brutally honest, like really, really, really honest. I've told you about the times when I have overeaten, or I've had like a mini binge. I've had chocolates, I've had potato chips, I've, had stuff for dinner that wasn't planned. But we've got to do that with ourselves as well. I think when you're investing in yourself, which Mounjaro is for me, it's an investment in myself and in my health and in my future. When you are doing this, I do think you need to be 100% truthful. Are you writing down every calorie you eat? You might not have to do that. That might seem extreme to you. But if you're having a bad week, or your weight has stayed static, or you're gaining weight, are you actually being truthful with yourself about what you're eating? I'll tell you my weight a bit later, my weigh-in, my results from the weigh-in. I don't think anyone's going to be too surprised. Let's just put it that way. But I'll get back to my sort of weekly routine and where we are. So side effects this week. I really haven't had too many side effects this week. I have had the ear popping, but thank you to Bright Angel. I think it's Bright Angel or Angel Bright. You know who you are, who told me about the patent eustachian tube dysfunction. And that is exactly what I have. The symptoms, I Googled it, I got to the bottom of it, and that is exactly what I have. Now, whether the diagnosis, thank you for diagnosing me online, whether that has helped, but funnily enough, the ear popping has been slightly decreased this week, which I don't understand. And when it does arrive, it seems not to last as long, which is great. Because sometimes it can arrive and it will stay with me for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm constantly like trying to clear my ears. So yeah, thank you for that. So that's really the only side effect I've had this week. I don't really get the sulfur burps much anymore. I used to have those loads. I've always joked about when I get the sulfur burps, I know the medication's working. So we'll see if when I go up to 10 milligrams, if I get the return of the sulfur burps. I had one episode of heartburn, but that was following quite a hard to digest meal. So yeah, no unexpected things there, and it was just solved by taking a couple of antacids. So yeah, no real side effects to report this week. Sleep, I'm probably had a good sort of 6.5 to 7 hours each night this week. I think my sleep is stabilised a little bit because like the stress is down. It's kind of like I've been more relaxed this week. So yeah, I'm pleased to report that the sleep is kind of back on track. And of course, when that goes back on track, then your mood tends to be a lot better as well. All these things feed into each other. And while I do put a lot of my sleep issues down to Mounjaro, I do recognise I'm a 55-year-old menopausal woman and we have sleep issues just because of our hormones, fluctuating hormones. And thank you to somebody who asked me or put in the comments about potentially my blood sugar was dropping too much overnight. I don't think potentially that is the case for me. My blood sugar is pretty stable most of the time. And when I wake up in the mornings, if I do test it, and I don't test it, I'm not diabetic. It's just I have some glucose strips that I do use occasionally just to see where I am. It's always pretty much around the same, and it always has been. So it's around the same as it was prior to Mounjaro when I wake up. The only thing I would say is that maybe my postprandial spike, so that's after you've eaten, doesn't tend to go up maybe as high, but I'm still within normal ranges, and my HbA1c is absolutely spot on, perfect, always has been, and I'm just putting it down to good genetics. So calories this week, I've been sort of hovering around the 1300 1400 mark, which it's slightly up for me. I tend to come in around sort of like the 1200 to 1300 range usually, just because of hunger, not because I'm trying to stay especially low. But this week it has creeped up. Like I said, there've been the odd packet of potato chips here. I did have a Lindor chocolate like 2 nights in a row, I think it was. And I have noticed that my portion sizes are slightly larger at the moment. But I think that's due to increased hunger. And I don't think there's anything wrong with eating a little bit more when you are more hungry. Exercise, again, this week, it's been a few bounces. I've got a mini trampoline, if you don't know what that means. It's been a few bounces this week. I haven't done any full sort of 15-20 minute workouts, but I have done, some bounces and some manoeuvres on that. But I have done free weights and resistance bands, I think 3 times this week, just because I want to focus on my muscles and retaining sort of, my muscle mass. Exercise has fallen off a cliff since I came back from Chicago, but I am going to make inroads into getting back on track with that again. Non-scale victories. Now, I can't remember if I included this in one of my vlogs a while back, but I've always had very big calves, and I used to be a swimmer, and over the years my calves have got bigger and bigger, not through swimming, through being overweight, carrying too much fat. And I've really noticed a decrease in the size of my calves, and it's one of the things that's always really bothered me, is because you need to get wide leg boots and things like that, and I've never really liked that. And I had a pair of like brown boots I bought years and years ago that I literally couldn't get on anymore, and I was really upset about that because they were very expensive boots at the time. And I tried them on the other day. Now, they're not swimming on me, they're not super loose, but actually I got them on and they go up all the way up my calf. So I'm really pleased about that. So if anybody is out there, weird like me, wants to have smaller calves, then it looks like that will be a side effect of the medication eventually if you're losing weight, or hopefully it will be. We all tend to lose weight in different places. Goals, as you know, I thought I was going to get into the 170s this week. Spoiler alert, I haven't. And to get into the 70 kilo range. Last week I was at 82.1 kilos, so that's still quite a bit to go to get into the 70s. But I had thought I would make it into the 170s, just down into a new 10 bracket on the scale. Right, so having said that, obviously I'm going to move rapidly on to my weight for this week. I have had a loss, but you have to look through a microscope to see it. So last week I weighed in at 181 pounds even, or 12 stone 13 even, or 82.1 kilos. This week I weighed in at a smashing 180.8 pounds, or 12.12 and then 8, or 82.1 kilos. The kilo bit of my scale didn't move at all. So I lost a grand total of a whopping 0.2 pounds. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and I'm really actually not that bothered about it this week. I anticipated even maybe having a gain this week, just because, like I said, I'd been eating a little bit more than normal. So a loss is good. A loss is a loss is a loss, right? So I'm pleased with that. Like I said, I'm a little bit disappointed. I missed out on the 170s. I wanted to get to 179.9 or whatever it was, but it's coming. It'll come in the next couple of weeks. I've always said that weight loss is a week behind. So what I lost this week, I don't equate to how I ate this week. I equate it to how I ate the week before. And the week before, I was eating quite a lot, and I was snacking much more than I have done since I started on Mounjaro. This week, the snacking has kind of been reduced. Like I said, there still has been a little bit more eating. So potentially next week, I could have a small loss, a maintain, or even a gain. I'm trying to get back into control of what I'm eating, and just making sure that I'm only eating to my hunger level. There is the desire to obviously overeat sometimes, when you're stressed, and I've definitely noticed that, but I want to get it back in control. Like I said, why am I spending all of this money on medication if I'm going to waste it by just eating junk and filling up on foods that I know I could live without? So yeah, plan for week 38, start of week 38, is to get back on track. It is Saturday today. I usually do allow myself something really nice for dinner, something very filling for dinner, something I don't normally do during the week. I might get a portion of chips from the chip shop, like fish and chip. I don't know if I'm in the mood for fish, but I have kind of a craving for chips. And I would allow myself to do that, because I'm not going to punish myself for the fact that I was reacting to how my life was for the last couple of weeks. And I think that's another important step for me, is before, if I gained weight or I didn't lose weight or I had a particularly bad week, I would punish myself, like by only eating like certain things. I'm not going to have that, or I'm restricting, or, calling myself names and saying nasty things to myself. And I'm not doing that. I'm going to, if I fancy a portion of chips, it's only the morning now, it's about 11 o'clock. So if I fancy a portion of chips tonight for dinner, I will have them. I really will, because I'm setting that mentality for myself that I can trust myself with food. I can allow myself to have food, and that I'm not going to use it as a stick to beat myself. So we'll see. I mean, sometimes, I crave KFC. You'd think I never ate anything other than KFC. I have. It's just that when I get cravings, I want that really savoury flavour. So I do have these cravings, and I don't always act on them. And sometimes I go out and I do what I need to do errands wise. And then by the end of the day, I fancy something simple for dinner. I always, on a Saturday, almost without fail, do have a small packet of potato chips and a chocolate or 2 chocolates. That's my Saturday treat. And I kind of set that to have. I haven't always done it, but I would say 9 out of 10 times I do. And that's just my little treat. That's like a bit of a signal that, you know, I've weighed in, I've logged it for this week. I can just have one evening where you indulge. And I think a lot of people do that. Normal people do that, you know. So that's where I am in terms of today. Get back on it again tomorrow. I'm hoping to be able to get up tomorrow and start some exercise. And I say I'm hoping to. I still have a lot of work to do on the house where the builders were in, and I just haven't had the energy to do it after work. So I've still got loads and loads of painting and tidying and skirting boards to like do and things like that. So I'm hoping to get on to that tomorrow as well. So if I'm going to do that, I might sack off the exercise for a Sunday, because Sunday's like a nice long day that I can spend doing lots and lots of sort of DIY and home stuff. And then I always stop by 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock's my cut-off on a Sunday. So I can sit down and have a really nice, relaxing evening. So Sunday's the one night I allow myself to stop, sit down and not do anything else for the rest of the night. But anyway, I digress. If you have any questions or you have any suggestions, or you like what I say, don't like what I say, leave a comment down below. If you do like it, give me a thumbs up. And if you thought about it, maybe subscribe. I am wondering what my content is going to be going forward. I do my weekly musings, midweek musings, and then I do my weigh-in on a Saturday. Do you have any other ideas? Is there something more you'd like me to include? Is there something less you'd like me to include? I saw a post on someone else's, or a comment on someone else's post that said, "You talk too much and waffle on. All we want to know is how much weight you've lost." And I'm not going to be that kind of a channel. So hopefully that person can move on and find what they're looking somewhere else. But part of this is that we're sharing our story, and you share your stories with me in the comments. And, you know, I always take those on board as well. But yeah, thank you to everybody that does comment. Like I said, I do always try and get back to them, and I apologise if I've missed anybody. I am going to go through and make sure I have hit all of the comments that you've left. So I don't want anyone to feel that I've just ignored their comment, because I know how that feels myself. So anyway, thanks very much for joining me for the end of week 37, and I will see you midweek for another midweek musings. Thank you very much. This is Ginger, and I'm gone for the day. Take care.